So what? Project Noir, yeah?
Ah, you're lucky. You're lucky I'm on mic.
What's up, man?
I said it, but I was on mute, innit? I was on
What's
mute.
up, Alright, today we're only missing one regular host, and that's the PWR. So wherever you are to PWR, shout out to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're not too busy drowning in uni work. But yeah, we've got 3 guests today. Guests in any order, introduce yourself.
Hey, so my name's Corinne and I go to the University of Birmingham. I'm studying political science and sociology in my first year, and I feel honoured to be on Project Noir. So thank you for having me.
Come on. One of our biggest fans right there.
It's true.
Hey guys, my name is Lucia. I'm the co-host of the Get Real With pod and the founder of Simplest Talks.
Hey, I'm Sophie. I'm 19, founder of the Collab Network, and also the co-host on the Get Real With podcast.
Okay, so that's our host. We have a good host today. But yeah, so here we're gonna hop straight in. We're going to talk about freedom of speech. And I always start with a broad question. So today I'm just gonna actually define freedom of speech. Like I just did a quick Google search. I said freedom of speech is the power or right to express one's opinions without censorship, restraint, or legal penalty. So my broad question for today is, do you think you have freedom of speech? And do you think other people have freedom of speech, like let's say on Twitter or something? And do you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I guess it comes down to like how we define the penalty when we go back to the definition.
Yeah.
Because in terms of like if I say something, am I penalized on a scale of I'll go to prison, or am I penalized in terms of I don't know, there'll be like public outcry.
Yeah.
I might be blacklisted from some places. So it kind of depends on how you look at how you define the penalty.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I kind of say we kind of don't really have freedom of speech, purely because you kind of know there's certain things you can't say in the public space and like get away with it. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
That's what I was gonna say, because especially when it comes to the whole restraint thing, is like feelings of not being able to say something, does that count as restraint? What about anyone else?
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, Sophie.
Do you want to go?
After you, my love, you can go.
I was going to say it is quite interesting because when you do look at, like, for example, certain countries where there's like extreme censorship, like I guess you could say that we do to some degree have a level of freedom of speech. Like, for example, we can openly criticize Boris Johnson without fearing we're going to be, going to prison. Whereas, for example, in parts of, North Korea, for example, even in parts of like some countries in Africa, like Uganda, for example, you openly criticizing the president or the leader, you can face really serious punishments for that. So it really is relative, but I would say that we do have it, but not as, I don't know. So it's mixed.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, I agree with Sophie. I think in the UK, we're quite, compared to other countries, I'd say we do have it to an extent, because obviously we've got like acts like the Human Rights Act protects it, like the right to expression, and then we have, like the right to petition the government, or is that the Constitution? I think we have that in the UK. I know they have it in the US, and yeah, we have it here, like the right to protest, which actually we can talk about that later, how like currently the government arguably is trying to kind of constrain that with the bill they've just passed. But yeah, I do feel like to an extent compared to other countries, we do have freedom of speech because it's protected, but then obviously there are other laws and acts put in place like against hate speech and stuff like that do restrict it, but I feel like rightly so, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, but then, because going back to what Sophie said, she said that we can openly criticize Boris Johnson. How do you guys feel about that? Because Boris Johnson has had a lot of hate over the past couple months, and I'm not sure if all of it is warranted. So what do you guys think?
Well, I think I feel like he's had scrutiny. Like, I feel like obviously there'll be some people to, come for other things that aren't political, and I guess like maybe they'll stretch it out a bit. But I feel like there's a difference between like hate and scrutiny, and I feel like this scrutiny is very much needed, especially when you are like prime minister. And I feel like without us being able to scrutinize the government, we'd be in like quite an authoritarian, like, do you know what I mean? So I think most of it's been warranted. Obviously, anyone who's like wishing him violence or anything like that. That's a stretch, but I think most of the time it is.
Okay, so then I think, okay, so going back to the definition, I actually want to go back into the restraint thing, because obviously because if we are counting feelings of restraint, like feeling like you can't say certain things, does that take away from your free speech? Because what I guess my question is part of free speech the opportunity to say stuff without a negative response coming after it?
I want to say that it should be like, based on the definition, you should be able to say like negative stuff without feeling any kind of way, and nothing should really happen to you because of what you said. But then, you know, people out here losing their jobs and the stuff they say online, so you can't really say that. Like, we don't have freedom of speech, because if I come out on the internet one day and I say something wild, no, I'll probably even get taken out of uni for a couple of weeks, and I'll probably have to go home, and I'll come back afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, I can't just cut out whatever the hell I want, even though you'd like to think that I can, because everyone is told that you have freedom of speech, you can say what you want.
Yeah.
At the same time, as well, I feel like it is low key, like, in certain aspects of it, it is a bit of a one-way street. Because if you look at you know, the guy that used to be the weatherman and now he's hosting Piers' thing. Yeah, you see the stuff people were saying when he stepped on, people were tweeting some mad stuff, mate. So I don't know. Another thing, I know for a fact most of them are going to lose their jobs. The rest of them they're pretty comfortable. You wouldn't tweet that thinking that there were any consequences.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, you look at when I don't know. There's a lot of people. Katie Hopkins was out here saying what she wants for a while. Nothing happened. Piers still can, if he really wants to, say whatever he wants. Nothing is going to happen at all. You know what I mean? But then you look at, obviously, when Wiley said his thing, it was almost overnight. Everything just sort of went a bit left for him, like, straight away.
Yeah.
So I feel like, honestly, like, freedom of speech, it depends on who you are and who sees what you're saying. So I don't think anyone really has it. I think it's subjective.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. You made like an important point about how it depends on the person, because I think there are definitely disparities in how people are treated and how like how fast some of them have to face consequences as opposed to others. So yeah, if you look at Katie Hopkins, you know, she's quite like, I guess she has quite like a high profile white woman who has said some very offensive things. Obviously, again, like you said, it's subjective. But then you have Wiley, a black rapper who was like suspended off Twitter very fast. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting point and something that has to be recognized, like the differences in how people are kind of punished.
I think like a lot of things, it's one rule for some people and another rule for others. And we've seen that over the years throughout various different things. But I was thinking while you lot were speaking, like, I feel like, personally, I feel like free speech, the term is very dangerous. And I think we've seen that because everyone thinks they can just say what they want and there should be no repercussions. And I think that's where the danger comes. I recently had an incident at my school that I witnessed and I reported, and I put it on Twitter just to out people, because there was some racism happening in group chats and stuff like that. And there were some people that put out this idea that they were just, it's free speech. I'm just saying it how it is. I'm saying my opinion. I'm allowed to say what I want. And then they feel this entitlement that they can say what they want and then nothing will come back and bite them in the arse. So I think that's where it's dangerous. But to a previous question you guys said too, I feel very privileged. I think I have a lot of free speech. Yes, there's things, especially lately, that are trying to just take that free speech away from me little by little. I think we've seen that with what the government has been doing. But when I compare that to where I'm from, Uganda, there's certain things you just can't say. Like even me, there has been times where I've outwardly said things and I've been scared that, oof, maybe I can't really say that too tough, or you know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I think on all of that.
I completely agree with Lucia. I do feel like some people do use kind of the whole kind of mask of free speech or the guise of free speech to mask their misogyny, racism, homophobia, and it is quite harmful. But then it does make you think that I guess free speech is then goes in alignment with morals. I guess what we consider to be right is relative to the person. I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, just on what you guys are saying, I think when you first asked the question, Prince, I was kind of answering from a place of privilege because I'm just used to being able to kind of say what I want. So that's why I was kind of like, no, we don't really have free speech. But when I think about like China, well, I know people that have lived there, and there's people that have literally kind of tweeted scrutinizing the government, and they've gone missing. And people know, like, if you do that, you're gonna go missing. It's not like, oh my days, where's this guy got? Like, I think even one of the richest people in China was speaking out against the government and how coronavirus came about in China, and he's still missing right now, I think.
Wow.
So yeah, I think I was definitely speaking from a place of privilege because I've grown up and always just known that I can kind of say what I want, and I was in my head it's like I should have more. So yeah, if you look at it like you someone said earlier, relative to other places, we definitely do have free speech to a certain extent.
Yeah. Now I actually wanna ask you guys, when do you exercise your free speech? Because, for example, when you look at the Wiley situation, he's saying anti-Semitic things, so it makes sense for people to have backlash on him. And obviously, when people tweet out racist stuff, all the same. But then, let's say we talk about something like body shaming. What do you guys think of that? Because people who body shame and people who speak outwardly about people being obese and all this stuff, I mean, in their head, they're doing it from a place of good. You see what I mean? Because they don't want you to live an unhealthy life. That's why they say that they're doing this stuff. They're saying that they get onto you out of encouragement, this, that, the other. So I guess my question is what you're talking about, does it change how free you are to speak and what kind of reaction you should get?
I would say yes, definitely.
Mm.
Because I would say that, for example, if it's, let's say we're on Twitter, yeah, and there's a 35-year-old middle class white man, and then there's an 18-year-old black woman, lower class, and then they're having a conversation about race. No matter what either party is saying, the view of the black woman is always going to be like valued more, whether she's right or wrong, whether what she say makes sense or not, whether what he say makes sense or not. It's always going to be it's always going to be kind of a thing where it's like, well, you're white, you're middle class, like you can't really talk about this type of thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even though he's not saying anything offensive, maybe he's not saying anything that is racist, maybe he's just having just a general conversation about something like race or something about sexism. It's always going to be a thing where it's like, your opinion isn't valued as much because of who you are. So I feel like when you're a certain, I feel like it's measured on like the levels of like oppression. So it's a thing where your opinion counts more if you belong to a certain group, if that makes sense.
How do you feel about that though? Because is there an amount of education that 35 white male could have had that you're now like, okay, now he has the right to speak on my reality?
You see, that's the thing. I'm not that guy to be gatekeeping and saying you can or can't speak. Obviously, I'm not going to sit there and let a 35-year-old white man tell me about how I should feel about racism. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I have to draw the line. But if it's just a generic convo, like they're just speaking about, okay, what goes on here, and then he's saying stuff like, I know this many black people who have said this, or I know this many people who have said this, and just general conversation. I don't think there shouldn't be a sort of thing where your opinion counts less, because then it gets to a point where eventually, obviously not now, but eventually over time, I feel like it will become a thing where it flips and it becomes a thing where, because your opinion is so disregarded, it becomes a point where now you're becoming not necessarily the oppressed, but you're becoming the person who can't really speak. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it gets very dangerous when people do stuff like that. But I think there needs to be a sort of, I think all in all, it starts within ourselves. It needs to be a sort of like, there shouldn't be a thing where you should say, okay, you shouldn't say this, or you should say this. It should be a thing where you should already know what to say and what to not say, and know what is your place to say and know what isn't your place to say.
I think with like spaces like on Twitter, for example, I think what you were talking about, Aaron, is kind of taken to the extreme, because there's certain spaces on Twitter, like it's almost predetermined. Say if there's a discussion being had, or there's there's some different opinions on a matter being discussed, it's almost predetermined who the right what the right opinion is, depending on like who said the opinion, if you follow me. So like it doesn't matter whether the opinion holds weight, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's backed up by more education, whether it's got more substance. It's more like, because a certain person said it, it's right, and it's just like that. And I think that can be kind of frustrating for people, and also kind of like what Aaron was saying, quite dangerous, because then it becomes more of a like, are we speaking to be right? Not are we speaking to be right? Are we speaking to be honest and truthful and have real discussions, or are we just trying to have the most kind of like popular opinion? Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, I think because Prince, I think you mentioned like fat phobia and like why certain things are considered to be like to go like too far and beyond freedom of speech. And I think it comes down to what, because by law I think you're protected from like groups that are protected from hate speech are like ethnic minorities, like disabled people, women, the LGBT community. And I'm not sure, I don't think that like obese that people come on like, in a certain category. So I'm not saying that it's not wrong at all, because obviously fat phobia is terrible, like there's no need for it at all. But I think that in terms of boundaries, I think that when it kind of is kind of, I guess, in the eyes of the government, is taken to be hate speech and something that needs to be controlled, is when you're kind of the speech is directed towards protected groups who have, I think Aaron mentioned like oppression and how kind of that comes into it a bit. So yeah, like I think that can kind of be helpful in drawing the boundaries between something that's offensive and something that is breaking the law, because yeah, hate speech is a crime. So yeah.
On the topic of fat phobia as well, like I think an issue with a lot of people that you said, Prince, they think they're speaking, or they are speaking from a good place because they don't want people to be obese. It's kind of like the world's not black and white in terms of everyone that's obese is that way by choice. Like you don't know, you could be fat shaming someone thinking, yeah, they just chose to be lazy and eat a lot. Maybe they have an underlying health issue. Maybe just the way their life's set up, the job they have, it's just not really possible for them to get the exercise and have the diet they need. So I think if people were a bit more realistic and they didn't make assumptions and they kind of made sure they had all the facts before having opinions on other people's lives, the world would be a better place, I guess. Yeah.
So would you think that it was better for nobody to speak on like their opinions of obesity, especially on certain people?
See, it's hard. Like I said, the world's not black and white, so I don't think I can say it's either no one does or everyone does. It's more of a case of like, if you don't know this person personally and you don't know why, you know, they are the way they are, whatever, like, do you really, even if it's not to do with being obese, like, do you really have the right to be kind of telling this person how to live? Do you know what I'm saying? If you don't have all the facts, if you don't know them personally.
I also think it's important that people, it might sound cliche, but people speak from a place of love. Because I think when it comes to fat phobia and fat shaming and things like that, like a lot of people come from really terrible, dark places when they're speaking on other people's bodies and how they look. And even before that, I think there's a lot of other issues that are attached to that. Like, what is our idea of beauty? Like, yes, you could be coming from a health perspective, but there's, as Kamal was saying, you don't know their circumstance. They might be taking medicine that is making them put on weight, or it could be numerous different things. So yeah, I just think people need to be careful when they speak and really ask themselves, does this concern me? Because this person you might even not know this person and you're chatting anyhow. So
I completely agree. It kind of reminds me of the situation with Lizzo, because people were telling her to go and lose weight and exercise, but then she'll say that she goes and exercises every single day. And people were making all these assumptions and not actually knowing anything about her actual lifestyle. So I do think people need to watch what they say, or at least question their intentions behind saying things, because telling someone to lose weight that you don't actually know, is that from a place of love? And how do we define what a place of love is if you don't actually know the person? So I do think it's about questioning that. And I do think that a lot of the time when people do say very fat phobic things, I think it's definitely from a place of just policing people's bodies, particularly women's bodies, and it can be very harmful.
Yeah, nah, I would agree, because I say, like, people, I feel like I love the idea of free speech and being able to say what you want to say, but there's some things that people just don't need to say. There's certain things that's just like, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything, because there's a lot of topics and a lot of situations where it's just like, it's very unnecessary. Like, there was no need for you to come on here in 2015 and say, this and this. Like, do you know what I'm saying? But yeah.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so what I gathered from that one is that it's not like, not everything's black and white, as Kamal said. So you don't really have the right to speak on it. But then let me bring the example of Christianity. Let's say, so do you think that Christianity or Christians, sorry, do you feel like Christians should have the right or should speak up like against the LGBT community? Because obviously for them it's a lot more black and white. It's a lot more biblical to say that LGBT, like, to speak against them. And obviously you're speaking from a place of, I want you to be saved too. So what do you think?
Can I kind of link in I remember when I did politics A-level, like, linked to your question, we were looking at this case actually. So basically it went to the Supreme Court because there was like a Christian bakery, or like a Christian family had a bakery, and an activism from the LGBTQ community wanted them to make a cake that said, I'm not sure exactly what it said on there, but it was something to do with the LGBT community, like celebrating, do you know what I mean? And the bakery basically like didn't want to do it, so they refused to do it. And the activists took it to the Supreme Court saying that they had been discriminated against, but the Christian bakers said that it was their freedom of expression. And they're like, was it freedom of expression? Yeah, freedom of speech and freedom of expression, because it's their religion. So what do you guys think of that? Because yeah, I think the Supreme Court in the end backed the Christian bakery, saying that it was their freedom of expression. So I think it kind of links into what Prince was saying.
I think with that, it depends. Like, if we're going down to individuals, a lot of Christians either contextualize their religion with like 2021, and with that they understand you can't just it's hard, because like you got some Christians that will contextualize, and then some that will take the Bible word and scripture word for word, and like if that's what is said, then that's it. And like, even me saying that out loud now as a Christian, I'm like, well, isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah,
take everything word for word and not even question it. But then when you kind of like, you live life and you're around people that are part of that community, and you kind of understand like it can't be right to just, I don't like, hate or speak out or tell or gaslight or even like, you know, tell them how to live is really, it's difficult. I'm not even trying to give an answer here. I don't even know.
Nah, I would say when it comes to like Christianity and like homophobia and stuff like that, I feel like it's not really, obviously I understand like trying to have people to be saved in it because it's a sin, but at the same time it's like some people don't really want that. Like some people just come out here just like they hide behind their religion as an excuse for homophobia rather than actually saying, okay, listen, like I understand you're part of the LGBT community, but like the Bible says this, Jesus loves you. Some people just come out and say, nah, like, all these gay people, LGBT, like there's no, that's not really, it's not really productive. Like they're not really trying to do anything. It's more of a thing where people are just saying it out of hatred. And the Bible teaches love the sinner but hate the sin. So it's a thing where people often like to pick and choose and just do certain things for a reason to be angry rather than actually trying to achieve a goal, if that makes sense.
Okay, but then let's say the people who don't do it out of hate, do they have the right to speak against it though? It seems like the problem in the scenario that you came up with was the fact that they hated them. So what if they didn't?
I don't know. It's a thing where obviously I'm not in everyone's head, so I can't say whether they hate them or not. But it's a thing where people, the way it comes across, often is seen as more. It's often valued more than what they're actually trying to say. So it's a thing where if you deliver your message properly and you deliver it in a way as in cool, like I'm trying to like lead you to become born again. I'm trying to convert you to a Christian, or I'm trying to save you, for example. That's a different thing than coming out here and saying all types of slurs and that on Twitter.
Yeah, it's true. Definitely the way it's kind of like, I feel like, because obviously homophobia is when you dislike or when you discriminate against or when you're prejudiced towards that group of people. And I feel like the second that you are sharing any hateful speech, again, any discriminatory speech or prejudicial, any of that, I feel like that's where a line definitely has to be drawn. Even if you do believe that it is in the name of your religion, I just feel like a line definitely has to be drawn. I think, yeah, because like Aaron said, there's a difference between, I don't know, I just think whenever something is obviously hateful, the line should kind of be drawn there, and you can kind of, I don't know, keep it to yourself or just, yeah.
I think another issue is we just as humans, we kind of see certain sins as bigger than others. So like if someone's gay and if someone just lied to a parent, like a Christian is usually gonna be like, that one's worse than that one. Whereas like we are taught that like all sin is sin at the end of the day. So rather than kind of just dwelling on what the sin is, I guess if Christians took the route of, okay, we're all sinners, and they kind of remembered that they're not perfect either, like let's just be saved together and go from there. And rather than going on a you can't be gay, like just like, do you know what I'm saying, focusing on that, just focusing on the fact that you're both sinners and you want that person to be saved, and just coming from a place of love, like we said earlier, I think that would help.
Yeah, I think it's definitely subjective, because even us having this conversation about it here, it seems as though most of us are Christians. So even us talking about it, that's biased, you know what I mean? So obviously we're going to have like a certain, like it's just hard, because obviously if you were to ask like an atheist or a Muslim, they'd probably have a very, very, like they could have different like arguments to us. So I feel like with this one, it's always very like subjective.
I feel like there's a big difference between free speech and hate speech, and I think there are some Christians that tip into that hate speech side when they're talking about homosexuality and the LGBTQ community, and I feel like there's a lot of conversations that specifically Black Christians are not willing to have about homophobia and where that really stems from. And during this whole Lil Nas thing, I'm sure you guys have all heard it. Someone I follow tweeted something interesting that I'm still trying to figure out, but it was interesting. And he said, the reason why most conversations about Black homophobia are fundamentally dishonest is because to honestly diagnose why Black homophobia exists requires Black people to make an admission about the Abrahamic doctrines that we are fundamentally unwilling to make as a community. That's why you get these dishonest conversations targeting individuals that conveniently ignore the actual scriptures. I'm in a weird place with my faith, so I don't know. And also I haven't really read the Bible in depth like that. But I don't know what you guys know about what the Bible says about homophobia, because I don't know. But I thought that was an interesting tweet. But yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the Bible says about homophobia exactly, but I feel like even if it does say certain things, even if it does condemn it in certain ways, I feel like at the end of the day, as Christians, you have to remember that we're not the ones who are meant to be judging. It's one thing to guide someone in a direction. Then I feel like when you start almost forcing things upon the person or making them feel certain types of ways because you feel like you're trying to help them, you have to start to realize that's maybe not the way you should go about it. And that at that point, you sort of get to the point where you're doing more harm than you are good. And that's when you should really take a step back.
I agree. I do feel like a lot of Christians, especially Black Christians, do need to really reconsider perhaps how they are spreading the good news, because like I think take it from the position of somebody who is part of the LGBTQIA community and you're being told that you're going to hell and that you're dirty and you're sinful and all these things. Like, how do you expect someone to receive that? Like, I just think some people need to be like quite mindful of how they are spreading the message and are mindful of how, like someone said, how much they do emphasize particular sins, because we do know that, you know, homosexuality is a sin that we like seem to overemphasize and talk so much about without, I guess, addressing other sins. So I do think that we need to discuss that more openly, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really true, everything that Sophie said. And I think as well, like a lot of it comes down to perspective and how we perceive things. So the same way that you could look at actual laws in the UK, what I see as a hate speech, as hate speech, Sophie could see as not hate speech, or what I see as freedom of expression, like Prince, you may not see as freedom of expression. And similarly with the Bible, like people like perceive it differently, and I feel like that's where it gets tricky, because it's something that isn't, like I think Kamal was saying, it's not like black and white, and everyone's going to perceive things differently, and I feel like that's why it's so difficult.
Yeah, no, I think the Bible is very open to interpretation, and that's one of the I think because of that, people like to pick and choose and like to value different things and choose different scriptures because they see somewhere, okay, this is a Bible scripture, this says this, but then there's another Bible scripture somewhere else in a completely different chapter that will say something else. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's very open to interpretation, but people often interpret it and then take the negatives rather than interpret it and using it for good, if that makes sense.
What do you mean using my good though?
Like, for example, with the homophobia, yeah, let's say I can't remember the exact scripture, but I know in the Bible it says like a man leaves his family and then goes with a woman and then creates a family, right?
Yeah.
And then there's another scripture that would say, "Oh, love thy neighbor," though. And then there'll be another scripture that will say, "Okay, judge righteously." Do you know what I'm saying? It's very open to interpretation. Do you know what I'm saying? And I know in some translations there's a scripture in some translations which says, the one that says like a man shouldn't lie with a man or something.
Yeah.
That scripture in other interpretations and in other translations it says a man shouldn't lie with a boy. So people will argue that, okay, that's not against homosexuality, that's against pedophilia. Do you know what I'm saying? So I feel like people take what they can and use it for good. I mean, use it for bad rather than use it for good, if that makes sense.
Just to take us somewhere else, innit? But this isn't the LGBT episode, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. One question I do want to ask though is, do you think free speech, like especially on Twitter, or just people just saying whatever they want to say on Twitter, do you feel like that has created like tension between communities, or do you think that it's like breaking communities apart? Because let's say, for example, if you go on Twitter, you're gonna see some stuff that are like male versus female. You're gonna see black versus white. You're gonna see black versus Asian. You're gonna see black versus Latino. You're gonna see a lot of black versus black. So what do you guys think?
100%. But I think like social media is almost set up to do that, to kind of push people into what, like the algorithms push people into like little spaces and groups based on what they think that person likes because of what they like or watching or whatever. And I watched the documentary on it. I think it was called The Social Dilemma, and it's making like society so I don't know, just split up, polarized, because people are only being surrounded by other people that think the way they think, and it kind of does it prevents us from diversifying our perspectives and kind of learning from other people and being open-minded. And especially in an age where with coronavirus, a lot of us are just online and we're communicating on social media. I think is probably like we're gonna see the after effects of this, like kind of making it worse in a way.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's true. Like I've started like, I don't like the idea of two wings and like left and right wing in politics, innit? But I'm more like central left leaning in terms of politics wings, innit? But I would say now I've started even following some right wing pages on Insta and Twitter, like trying to look at other ideas, because the way that all of the algorithms on social media platforms are set up is to show you things that you like, show you things that you're double tapping on, show you things that are like your ideas. There's never really what's the word? There's never really like any diversity or any sort of change. So then if all you're seeing is about, okay, this is left wing like type of agenda is all you're seeing on your feed, and then you see one outrageous tweet from someone who's right wing, then it's going to become a thing where it's like, okay, this is what all of them are like. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, true.
It's not really good for society itself, because outside of our screens and outside of like social media, when we go out and see each other like face to face, like this is what we're like, conversations that I had on social media, this is what we're going to take out into the real world. You're going to have that conversation with your classmate. You're going to have that conversation with your lecturer. You're going to have that conversation with your colleague at work. You know what I'm saying? So these type of things are, I think they're very detrimental.
Yeah, 100%. Just to bring it back to free speech, it's like I see people saying some wild things, and because they're kind of just in the same spaces, like they say it with so much confidence and so like nonchalantly, because they almost know for a fact the people that are going to see that tweet or see whatever, they're going to agree. They think like that already. And it's just like, you take that out into the real world, it's like they probably won't be ready for people to be like, what are you talking about? Or even challenge them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I agree with Kamal and Aaron, but I'd also just like to add that I think social media has also just intensified a lot of the opinions and the beliefs that people have always had and have been festering inside them. And yeah, I feel like it's a safe space for a lot of people that, again, wouldn't say certain things in person or in certain settings in real life. But because they have this safe space, they'll say all they want online.
Yeah, 100%. Like if Twitter was real life, like if tomorrow Twitter became real life, I'd have to hide in my house, because there's so many things I do that like people get dragged for every day, and it's crazy. Like in real life, I'll be doing them and it's mine and no one cares. But when it's Twitter now, it's like, yeah, you can't do that. So yeah, it's crazy. Or maybe it's just the Twitter that I'm in or surrounding myself with, whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting because I 100% agree with everything you guys have said. It can really have quite negative impacts in a sense. Like it can intensity, yeah, what you guys say is really true. But at the same time, like obviously, it has mobilized a lot of this is me speaking from a biased point of view, but a lot of great movements, like Black Lives Matter and just so much more, the Me Too campaign, like things like that, which perhaps I guess that links to freedom of speech, because in some obviously countries you wouldn't be able to like speak out against the government actions and police brutality. But I do think that in that sense, social media does play a great role in just letting us, mobilize movements, speak out against the government. Because a lot of what I've learned, like believe it or not, like I'm a politics student, like I try to keep myself educated outside of social media, but I have learned so much from social media in the past year or two, and I just can't picture where certain movements would be right now without it, and without the role that us having the freedom to speak out. Similarly to like Kamal, I use like Twitter a lot, and like if I wasn't able to say a lot of the things I had said in the last like 2 years, it wouldn't hit. So I think definitely it does have like its positives as well.
Okay, when we talk about like free speech creating tension between communities, does anyone have an answer as to why though? Like, why does us having the opportunity to just say what we want on Twitter, why does that create beef rather than create unity?
I think people a lot of people are fundamentally different. Like, so it's not a case of just like a couple opinions are different. It's a case of like the basis of how a lot of people think is different. Like I said, fundamentally, just because of upbringing, the type of people they surrounded themselves as they grew up, like it was always destined to be that different, just because of how different their upbringings were. And I think when it comes to how free speech kind of catalyzes the friction between people that are fundamentally different, I guess it's always bound to happen. It kind of brings it. If there wasn't free speech, people wouldn't kind of realize the differences in a way, because people would have to kind of subscribe to a set way of thinking and only say what was allowed. But because with free speech, you're kind of allowed to say what you want, people kind of realize, oh wow, this person thinks completely different to me, but they're wrong. And that kind of causes friction, I guess.
I agree. I think what also causes tension is the fact that people say things and aren't necessarily, like, I guess we all think we're right, and we all sometimes say things and we aren't always as open to criticism as we think we are. And people, when they are having debates about things, like for example, when we have the whole colorism debate about light skin versus dark skin, typically, in asterisks, or things about, all these kind of debates that we have, diaspora wars, all those kind of things, people kind of say things but aren't really listening. They don't really, like, I feel like it's not really, like, social media is not the best place to have healthy dialogue, because people just kind of say things and it's not like, oh, I want to listen to actually be educated or understand. It's just to kind of say I'm right. And as somebody mentioned, I can't remember who was talking about how it also depends on who's talking, because somebody with a large amount of followers tends to have a lot more supporters who can back their view. So again, it's kind of like, okay, I'm kind of fearful to say this thing against this person because they've got a lot more followers than me. So again, I just think social media is not the best place to have like healthy dialogue about certain things, and it kind of is more so about just being right rather than just understanding that this person's experience is different to mine.
Yeah, 100%. Because, like, sorry to bring it back to Twitter all the time, but if there's like a back and forth on Twitter and someone puts something out, the first thing they're going to be thinking about is, I hope this one gets a lot of likes. And like, if there's a reply in the back and forth that kind of has loads of quote tweets but not a lot of likes, instantly, if you don't even read through like the discussion, you're just going to think, oh damn, that was the one that was wrong. That's what everyone didn't like, so I shouldn't like that one. So yeah, it's kind of like, it's not about whether you're right per se, it's just about whether the masses liked what you said.
Okay, so obviously we've spoken about like people using their speech in different ways. So let's talk about, let's take like a problem in social media. Let's say something like racism. What do you think the solution is for that? Like, how do we go about ending racism on social media, and can we?
That's a big question, bro.
Did you say on social media or just in general?
I'd say on social media, because I feel like that's a lot more controllable than in general.
I think I feel like it has to start elsewhere. It has to start in real life. Because social media, as much as it is a great place, it's a very powerful place. It's done great things for so many people. It ain't real, and a lot of the real beliefs and how people really think and have been conditioned start at home and start at how we're raising our kids and the conversations we're having in real life. Because again, as people have mentioned, like having these conversations on socials can be like people just talk. They just talk, and they don't talk to be to listen and to ensure that people hear each other. It's just like, I'm putting my opinion out and we just go back and forth. It's not very healthy. But yeah, I feel like for there to ever be a solution for racism, yes, we can push for it on socials and use it as a tool. Definitely, that's what we've been doing. But a lot of the things that we talk about on socials have to be implemented in real life. And if we're real, like even when you look at elections, for example, you'll be seeing tweets and around election time, and you'll be thinking that someone else is going to win because there's so much support, and it's like, yeah, like it's going in the right direction. Then like in real life, it's not happened that way. And I feel like that's the same thing with these conversations we have online. We might have these great conversations, we might be using the BLM hashtag constantly for a couple months, but then that fizzles out. What are we really doing in real life? So yeah, a lot of that needs to start at home in real life. And
yeah, definitely. Like Lucy made some really good points about, yeah, like in terms of like a long-term solution, if we're really gonna like actually deal with the problem instead of just hiding it, it definitely starts in outside like real world structures. And if we are talking about like social media, like a kind of like more micro, like in the meantime, I think, yeah, it's really hard because, well, I'm saying it's hard, but I do feel like these social media platforms can do a lot more than they do. I mean, I'm no like tech expert, so I don't know how exactly, but it's like, you know, like they have like this hidden replies feature on Twitter, but I don't know, like there's certain language that it's just shocking. You think, how is that allowed? Like I shared a post on the Windrush, and I had people drop in monkeys and bananas in the comments, and I was shocked. Like
Wow.
I was like, yeah, there was like a gorilla and a banana emoji, and I was like, sorry, like I've never. Yeah, I was just shocked. And it's like, but how can that be filtered out? Are you gonna have Twitter block every monkey emoji? Like, no, they can't do that. They can't watch every conversation. And I think that is what is dangerous about social media, I guess, just like it is in real life. You can't really filter and control what people are going to say. Like, you know, in real life, if they're going to call you the N-word, they're going to call you the N-word. And I guess it's the same online. So yeah.
This reminds me actually of the Oh, okay. I was going to say, this reminds me of the conversation that I actually had with Corin the other day, and it's kind of not really linked, but linked. So we were talking about like radicalization and how social media can actually, what can they actually do to combat this? Because obviously it's like, okay, we know that it exists out there and we know that it's a problem, but then it's like, how much can we filter what people say, or how much can we really control what people consume? Because it is out there and it exists, and the internet is so huge that it's almost very difficult to try and filter those things. And obviously if you are, for example, looking at what certain groups are consuming, that can be labeled as racist or prejudice. So that's the thing. I think social media is quite hard. It is quite difficult to control what people say. And obviously it's like Corin was saying with like, you know, the case of people dropping the monkey emojis, which is horrible. It's like, how can Twitter really control that? Because I know that Twitter tries. Obviously you've got the report feature. You can obviously report, you can block, you can mute, but it's like people still have these opinions and people still affect them in real life. So it is quite difficult.
I feel like it's very hard to, like you were saying, it's very, very hard to police these sort of spaces. It's very hard to, even when you ban someone's account, like nothing is really stopping them from making a new one. Automatically detecting things with stuff like regular expressions, that's just not going to be enough, because you end up at a point where, I don't know, there's so many hundreds of ways of saying the exact same thing that there's no way that you could possibly make a system that would be able to counter all of that and then just like report it straight away. even if you are to, it's going to have misfires. If you do it like with artificial intelligence, it's going to accidentally maybe remove certain things. People will have accounts blocked that they didn't see the point in being blocked. You could be mentioning something that someone else said. You could be saying something that is racist, but you're not, as in almost as a quote. And then, but because it's on your account, and even if you're talking about how bad it is and all that kind of stuff, it would still get your account taken off if they were to implement those sorts of things. So I feel like, go right back to what Lucia said, you have to start these things in real life. Doing it online is almost impossible. Random know about what the Xbox Modern Warfare parties used to be like. Not a chance. Not a chance. You're stopping anyone, man. So yeah, these sort of conversations you start in person, and the policing of it needs to start in person as well, because I don't know, when you're online, there's not, obviously because of all these privacy laws and stuff anyway, there's not much they can do to track you down unless it gets out of hand and it causes an effect in the real world. And sadly having a negative impact on loads and loads of people's lives and the way that people are thinking through the things that you say doesn't count to the government as having an impact on the real world. So 9 times out of 10, they wouldn't do anything about it until someone dies or something drastic like that.
Mm. Actually, just to hop in straight on the whole PlayStation thing, because PlayStation's so funny, because my views on the free speech have definitely come from there, because what is allowed there is completely different to what's allowed in regular life. So one thing I actually do want to ask you, man, is do you think PlayStation should monitor us a bit more and monitor the conversations that are going on? And should there be punishment for what you say?
I can't lie. I think they are now. Like, I think that's why they started doing the recording the party. Yeah,
transcript now.
I know now.
The transcripts.
Yeah. On on PS5. So basically, Tyler got PS5 in it. On PS5, when we talk on his screen, it comes up like what we're saying.
Same,
like, it's literally written there, fam. It's crazy.
I'm shaking.
It's crazy. So it's like a thing where like, for example, if there was like bullying claims or like serious like hate speech or something, you could just say, okay, cool, it happened at this time in this party, take it to court, and I think they would have it there. You know what I'm saying? I think they'd have it there. Just waiting.
See, that's mad. See, growing up in gaming culture, that's mad to me. Like, obviously, for the better of everyone's mental health, it's a good thing. But as a gamer, it don't feel right.
I heard some hard R's in my lifetime. I can't lie. I've heard a few.
Some bad stuff has been said in parties.
There's been some lie. It's not good. It's not good. I'm not really against. That's why I'm not really against the monitoring of it, because that is not okay for people who are under the age of 18 to be having these type of thoughts as well. It's not okay.
You see. See, for the greater good is right. Yeah.
I think it's interesting how we can become quite desensitized as well, like through social media, because, you know, like you guys were saying, or if social media is PlayStation, social, whatever you count PlayStation as, so you guys have had those experiences, you know, on Twitter or other social media platforms. You're constantly viewing people. Yeah, you're just constantly viewing some terrible language, hateful, like hate speech, and it really, like, we can become so desensitized to it because we're so open to being it. And I just think that's something that's quite interesting. Like, it's sad that we should be able to be desensitized to something like that, but I think that definitely like a huge effect of social media and how free people are to say what they want.
It's really true, because when you think about it, like in real life, in like a normal day, you probably wouldn't come across so many different opinions of something or so many different viewpoints. But I guess on social media, because we're like kind of almost exposed to so much all at once, so much news, trauma, like especially with last year when like obviously kind of like the BLM movement resurfaced, like, you know, seeing the trauma of Black people just, and like, you know, all this kind of news and everything all at once, like it is kind of interesting, because like in your normal day, you probably won't come across that. So I guess it's just interesting how social media does make us very desensitized to things, and we are kind of just used to seeing it, but it's like, is that normal? So
I definitely agree. Like, as much as I understand the oppression that affects me as a Black British man, I guess, if I was like, the idea of being shot by police, if I hadn't watched American films or like seen like some of these videos from the dash cams of the American police, like it would kind of it would be alien to me, you know, like because I'm black, I could be shot by police. Obviously, in Britain, like black people still get stopped more and things like that. But yeah, I definitely think like we're exposed to things that we definitely wouldn't be. And yeah, that desensitization, like you guys said, is definitely real.
You know what? Actually, just one quick question, because you mentioned the whole you seeing videos on social media, like all these dash cam footage, like black men being shot, black women being shot. I remember, especially during BLM times, when I saw, because there was like days where your timeline would be full of it. You know what I mean? Whether you're on Instagram or Twitter, your timeline would be full of it. How do you guys feel about that? Because I remember in the comments, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, now take this down. Why is this still up?" Like, do you feel like social media administrators should take down those videos, or do you think it is important for them to stay up so people can see what's really happening?
I mean, I think the feature that Instagram has on their stories now is really good
Yeah.
because, like, you guys have probably seen, you literally can't view it until you press like I agree or whatever it is. But yeah, like when it comes to Instagram posts, as he said, when you're just swiping and you see it, like I think it is mad, and yeah, it is trauma. And again, when you think about the family, like whether the family wants certain videos to even be shared in the first place, and I guess
Yeah.
there's this whole argument of like people having to see it to understand what's happening, which I think is like at the start I was kind of like, yeah, people like have to see it, but now I'm like, people shouldn't have to see that stuff to know that it's wrong or to know
Yeah.
that it's happening. Do you know what I mean? But again, I can still understand that a lot of again what mobilized the outrage, and I guess the close to justice, if we've even got justice yet, did come from people seeing that stuff and did come from the anger and the outrage that was caused. But I do think that I know there's a lot of talk on like trigger warnings and stuff, and I think that they are kind of needed. You know, it's a video of someone getting shot, like it's a video of someone being choked to death. Like I feel like there definitely needs to be some kind of censorship there, and we should have like the choice on whether we want to watch something or not.
Yeah, I feel like to what you're saying, when you see a lot of it, it can sort of go two ways. Either when you see it for the first time, I feel like you're like, wow, like you sort of start to realize the gravity of the situation. And then when you start to see it more and more, you start to realize more like this is a serious problem. But then obviously when I was seeing people getting shot every day, at first it was like, I already knew people were getting shot. I already knew black people were getting shot by police and all that kind of stuff. I knew black people were being treated unfairly and all that. But first time you see it, it's like, wow, you see it again, you're really thinking this is very serious, it happens a lot. And then at some point, it just starts to it starts to put you down a bit. It's like, oh man, like, it's like every day, it's not like, oh, like, why are you posting it? But more like, why is this happening? And I feel like, obviously, I know it's happening. I know it's still happening right now. But I feel like for some people, it is a lot to watch day in, day out. You're seeing somebody get shot here and there, seeing people get choked out, and having those trigger warnings, like she said, and having the new Instagram stories thing where you can say, oh, you know, you have to sort of unhide the content because it's explicit. Those things do help a lot because it gives you back that sort of control from having to see that every single day.
Yeah. Okay, this is a whole different topic, but because we touched on it a bit earlier, but didn't really go into it. So, how do you guys feel? Because obviously, we'd want our administrators to do more. You see what I mean? Like the people who run social media and stuff. But how do you feel about people getting permanently banned from social media? Because I was having a whole conversation with the people about it, and he seemed to think it was right for people to be permanently banned, but I didn't. So I wanted to see what you guys thought.
Before we, oh sorry, Andrew, do you want to go?
Ah, you go.
Before we even like determine whether it's right or wrong, like I'll say what I think, but like the first thing I would want is consistency. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna do it to certain people for certain things, cool, but then do it to those people for those same things as well. Do you know what I'm saying? So obviously touching on the Wiley thing, he was making anti-Semitic comments.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's wrong. He deserves some sanction. but I was seeing Katie Hopkins for years, you know, like attacking, fat shaming, racism, just generally nasty, divisive stuff. She should have been gone a long time ago. So I would just like some consistency first. But in terms of what I think in terms of actually come back to me, I don't even know what I think. I'll be honest.
Because with the Wiley thing, it's
Yeah.
like Wiley's actually apologized. Like he really
Yeah.
took time
That's
out and I really apologized that he's still banned. And I also read that he's also banned on YouTube now. He's banned on TikTok as well. You see what I mean?
yeah. The thing, because what I was thinking about in my head was like kind of like, what do we? I kind of asked this question quite a lot. What do we want? Like, do we want to reform people and help them do better in the future, or do we just want to be like, all right, these are the bad eggs, we're done with them, we want nothing to do with them, cast them away, they're not allowed to be around here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's the latter, then cool, we ban them from social media forever. But if it's the former, then really and truly, cool, they should be banned for a while, and until they kind of show that there's some remorse and they've changed and they understand the gravity of what they did, then they should be allowed to come back. But yeah.
And I agree with what Kamal saying near pretty much to every point, because when you asked, I think people should be banned completely, my mind immediately went to cancel culture. And for me, in some way, cancel culture is something that I do and I don't agree with, because on the one hand, what the person did was wrong, and I feel like, I don't know, not everything that you do needs to you can get away with scot free. But at the same time, it's like cancel culture to me is almost like saying that people can't change when they do something. It's almost like saying that when they do that thing that they did, whether it be now, whether it be how many years ago, they are that same person, that they haven't changed, and they're going to keep doing it, and that they're not going to stop. So as far as banning people permanently is something that I want to agree with, because logically it sounds right. You did a very bad thing, you need to go. But then I look at it and I'm like, maybe people can change, maybe they can't. Obviously, there's people out here that will do what they done and they'll turn around and say, I've said what I said. You know, ban me if you want to ban me. But not everyone's like that. So, and naturally, you can't do it on a case by case status, because I don't know. Obviously, like Kamal said, you have to have the consistency. So I feel like I haven't even given an answer. But I feel like it's very hard to sort of draw the line between banning people permanently or banning them, but then sort of giving them a chance to come back after a while. Obviously, on Twitter, people do get their accounts, like they can't like stuff, retweet stuff, or tweet for like a little bit of time and stuff like that. But I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think definitely like the consistency argument, 100%, like that's really important. I think in terms of reforming, yeah, I mean, ideally, like it would be like that people can be reformed, and obviously like I'm a firm believer in that people can change, but then it's like, yeah, if you do have like an anti-Semite who's obviously making what's supposed to be a safe space like an unsafe space for so many people, it's like, you know, it's so easy for someone to come back and be like, yeah, I've changed, like, but I guess it like are they really going to reform themselves? Like, how would that happen? Because a lot of people are wrong and strong, do you know what I mean? But I think it's interesting, like I feel like, okay, let's say I don't actually know the terms and conditions of Twitter, like I feel like no one reads them, but say it was a thing where they had like some like a contract. Let's say you're signing into a contract, like if you use a platform and you know what is counted as hate speech, and then, you know, they've said to you that your account will be banned if you speak hatefully, but then you choose to go and then spread hate. Like, if they're going to ban your account, at the end of the day, you chose to do that. Like, not to be harsh, because again, here's the thing, it's not consistent. But when, again, like as I said, Twitter has told you not to be hateful, otherwise your account could be banned, but then you still go and you're racist or you're whatever it is and you're banned. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, for life, I don't know. Like, yeah, maybe it should be like a short term, like amount of time. But I just feel like people, like, what do you expect? You know what I mean?
I do find cancel culture quite interesting, because I guess it's kind of like the question of, yeah, do you think people can really change? And how do we also measure accountability? Because someone could say, yeah, I'm sorry, but how do you know that they mean it? And it's kind of like, how do we know? And who are we to say that someone can and can't say something? I mean, obviously we know some things are just objectively wrong and we know that, but it's like, it is quite hard to know. So I do agree that I do think maybe it should be for a period of time. But then again, it's like, who decides they can come back? Twitter? Like, how do we, because then I guess, for example, Donald Trump, if Trump was to come back, I'm sure people would still have an issue with that. So it's kind of like, who decides?
Yeah. That was my problem with it in the first place. Like, who decides that they have to go and who decides that they come back? Yeah. Because just to explain the conversation with the people, he was talking about people getting banned. Like, I can say something on Twitter now and get banned. You see what I mean? Whether it's like for a couple of days or whatever. But with me, that was calm for me because that's like an algorithmic thing. If the algorithm picks you out and you're like clearly violating a term or condition, like especially like with what Corin said, with you signing onto the contract if there was one, like that's calm for me. But giving power to social media admins, because I can actually create a social media today. You see what I mean? And who now gives me the right to decide more, like who gives me the moral compass? You see what I mean? To decide who is right and who is wrong and who gets to say what, who gets to say, who doesn't get to speak. But yeah, not fair enough. I don't want to say it depends on the person, but a lot of people actually depend on social media to actually have a living. You see what I mean? Obviously, Trump doesn't. Trump's like, he got money in it. He don't need social media. He can stay off. But for some people, it's like social media is your life, and social media it could be your source of income and this, that, the other. So if they take you off, like you're actually living off nothing. So I don't know how I feel about situations like that. Because even, I don't know if you might know, like I went to an event the other day and they, because it was like an event where obviously you sign up and you give your name and details and everything. And you go and you had to have ID to get in. And one form of ID they were accepting is a Facebook page. Obviously, I don't have Facebook, but I find it weird to me. So now, if someone's being taken off social media, it's like now they don't even have that. Obviously, there's other forms of ID, but it's just an example. You see what I mean? Of the power that we're given to these social media admins. That's for me anyway.
Yeah, it's crazy. You were talking about people losing their jobs and stuff, and it brought to mind like I guess showing out how people can really post anything on social media. Like, have you guys seen when someone's being like cancelled or held accountable, how you want to phrase it, when people will find somebody's address, someone's home, and post it, and it will be like someone obviously say I've said something, and people are dropping my mum's home address, like, do you know what I mean? All this random stuff, and I guess it kind of is an example of how on social media you can really drop anything. Like, you can find out anything about anyone and you can really share it, and the power it has in kind of like ruining someone's life is crazy. So yeah, it's mad.
See, because I think for me in that sense, it kind of asks the question, is everyone entitled to their own opinion? You see what I mean? Like, if your opinion goes against people and your opinion is hurtful, do you have the right to have that opinion, and do you have the right to post it on socials?
I think we have to discern between, like, obviously there's opinions and there's it goes back to what I said about everything being black and white. So if you look at Trump again, I don't really know why he got banned. I think it has something to do with the fact he was spreading lies during the election. Am I right? Or
no. The Trump ban was because the Capitol riots on the 6th.
January 6th,
because of that, because like months beforehand, obviously he said it on Twitter. He was like, "Oh, this is an injustice." Like, he basically incited the whole thing. But everyone thought he was just like, "Oh, he's just joking about it." But obviously these men were planning the whole thing in advance, innit? Do you see what I'm saying? So they treated it as like terrorists, like terrorist leaders will like speak out about stuff in it, like. They treated it the same as that and banned him.
But then how much do you think that Trump was involved in that planning though? Because from what I heard on news stories and stuff, when they actually entered the Capitol building at first, Trump was actually still speaking. You see what I mean? So obviously he wasn't.
Yeah, you know what it is? I don't think he didn't necessarily plan it and say, "Cool, this is what we're doing," because that's just a bit, you know what I'm saying? But he incited it. Like he did say like, "Yo, like go out there and do something." You know what I'm saying? Like, there's tweets of him saying, like, go out there and do something. So he has to be held responsible in some way.
But then should you be able to be punished for people misinterpreting what you said?
But I can't lie.
I don't think it was a misinterpretation.
Yeah,
This guy is the president. He was the president.
Go out there, fam.
He knew what he was implying, because even it wasn't just the tweets that he tweeted. It was also there was a rally he was at just before everyone went to the Capitol, where he said certain things to again incite violence at the Capitol. Like, it was very clear what he was trying to do, but obviously
he knows his followers. Like,
exactly,
you know, again, this coming from a very biased point of view, but he knows that a lot of his followers are mad. But you know,
bro, like, he's the president. You know, like, he's not dumb. He's actually the president. Like, he's not a dumb guy. Like, he should be able to tell. Like, or if even he can't tell, his advisor should at least say, okay, this might be interpreted the wrong way, so don't say this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, fair. But then, do you think that warrants a permanent ban then?
Permanent, no, but a ban, yes. A ban of some sort, but not that's not a permanent. That's not something that should be. I don't know. I don't think it's a lifetime ban worthy thing, but it's a thing where he should be banned for saying that.
Okay. I want to go one more topic for right now, and it's less about freedom of speech and it's more about freedom to speak. How do you guys feel about code switching? Do you feel like we should be doing code switching or not?
I don't think we change how you speak. Sorry, I'm just clarifying.
No, that's fine. Go on.
Is that how you change how you speak in different environments?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say I don't think we shouldn't have to, but it's the reality, innit? Like, it's something we have to do. You know what I'm saying? I'll probably be doing it for the rest of my life, but hopefully future generations it can change, you know what I'm saying?
But how will it change in future generations if we don't stop doing it?
It depends, because it comes with this. That's sort of the whole, like, it's sort of under the whole idea that if you speak a certain way, you have a certain level of intelligence.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's people, I know people who will say G and fam and other colloquials in every other sentence, but they're smarter than people who speak the Queen's English. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it all depends. Like, it's the whole sort of stereotype that you say this, you say that, you're dumb, you're illiterate, etc., etc. And it's the whole, like, I don't know. It's a thing that I don't think can change right now, but hopefully over time, as we get more progressive, things will start to change. There'll be less sort of like stereotypes and preconceived ideas and just I
think it comes under like the type of spaces we're trying to get into and like who we're trying to seek validation from at the end of the day. Because like you said, Aaron, you know guys who speak a certain way that are still intelligent. So if everyone was kind of like you, then people would just talk how they want to talk. But when you're trying to get into kind of like white spaces, and you know, impress certain types of people that might not understand or respect that way of talking, I think that's when it like kind of comes about. So it's just about like, are we gonna keep trying to enter these spaces? We kind of have to, because like we live in the UK. Are we gonna keep seeking validation from these people, or are we just gonna kind of do our own thing?
I try my best to I'm very intentional when I'm in certain spaces to be myself and talk how I talk. And like, for example, like if I'm speaking at an event or something like that, like I might open up my talk with yo guys because that's how I speak. Not caring who is there, because I want to make sure I stay true to who I am, and if that makes certain people uncomfortable, that's your business. And I think that's the type of energy we have to come with at certain times. But at the same time, there are spaces that I enter where automatically the tone of my voice or the words that I say just change, because I've been conditioned to know that, yo, when you get here or when you're around these people, switch it up, because, you know, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm probably thinking they're gonna see me in a certain type of way. But yeah, I think there's a level of professionalism that you have to take with you when you go into certain spaces. But we have to analyze, what do we see as professionalism? Because is it what the white man thinks, or is it is it something that it relates to us as Black people too? I think that's important to switch up before, yeah.
Yeah, I think what Lucy says is really true. It's a shame because professionalism, the idea of it, the whole concept is rooted in, you know, anti-Blackness, or you could say white supremacy, whether it be from your hair, like, you know, the way you speak, all sorts. But not gonna lie, if I'm going to a job interview, I have to change the way I speak to get the job. Maybe, like, do you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, if we're trying to get us as Black people to these top positions, I will get there and then I will change how it's done. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and hopefully it'd be a thing where in a few generations' time, when we are the people who are, God willing, at the top of these institutions, then hopefully we can change it and what is seen as professional can change. But yeah, we shouldn't have to do it, as Aaron said, but I will do it for now to get to the top positions, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of sad though, because if you talk about how professionalism is kind of rooted in white supremacy, our Prime Minister Boris Johnson, like, he comes to work with his hair looking messy on a daily basis, and it's not a big deal to him. And if, like, let's just say in some alternate universe, somehow a Black person became Prime Minister, one day out of many, if their hair wasn't meeting the criteria of, I don't know, whether it looked messy, maybe I just had like there was a Black lady afro out, there'll be outrage, 100%. So it is kind of sad that it's like that. And we have to kind of subscribe to things that are aimed at, like, institutions that are oppressing us at the end of the day. But like you said, just hopefully we can get to the top of these institutions and make changes.
See, I really like what Corin said. In terms of, like, we will code switch now in order to get into a better position in the future. So that obviously one day we can be the people that decide professionalism. And it made sense to me until I came up with this question. So I'm just going to pose it to you guys. If you do go into an interview and there is someone that looks like you there, like let's say another Black person is there, are you still going to code switch for that interview?
Yes.
100%.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
Can I have some clarification on what did you say, code switch? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, code switching.
Yeah, what is that? Because if I'm to answer that question before you go, I feel like I just be professional. What I see as professional. Like, as much as I probably subscribe to the idea of professionalism that links to white supremacy, without knowing, I feel like I know what being professional is away from that as well, kind of. I think so. So I don't know whether I am code switching, but if there's clarification on what exactly that is, yeah, I'd be interested.
The difference between, like, professionalism and the whole, like, code, like, let's say professionalism, I would say, let me say this. Professionalism is often used as like a mask for other prejudices. Do you see what I'm saying? For example, if you type in like professional hairstyles or stuff like that, you'll see lots of like white men hairstyles, like maybe some spiked hair, some just, you know what I'm saying, like straight hair. If you type unprofessional hairstyles, you'll see like dreadlocks, braids, cornrows, etc., etc. You know what I'm saying? So it's more of a thing where they often use it as a mask, to say, okay, this, which is an inherently Black property, this is unprofessional. So it's a thing where code switching is more actually just the way you're speaking, do you know what I'm saying, rather than the way I'm acting. Because I can still act professional and speak how I speak to my friends, but then what they're kind of implying is that me speaking how I would speak to my friends and not articulating myself as how the employer would articulate himself makes me unprofessional as a whole. No matter what I'm wearing, no matter how I'm acting, no matter how polite I am, no matter how smart I am, no matter how well suited I am for the job, no matter what I'm wearing, it's kind of just a thing where it's hard for me to explain, but it's kind of a thing where they kind of just like it's like, okay, you speak in colloquials, like anything you have to say, no matter how good you are, no matter what your grades are, it's kind of like disregarded because of the way you speak, which is why we have to code switch, if that makes sense.
I understand now. Thank you.
Because I'm thinking about the hair thing, yeah, and obviously, I feel like I'm guessing what I want to ask right now is why do you think? Because I think a lot more people are wearing natural hair to work, like even though it's really unprofessional, a lot more people are doing that. A lot more people are wearing their braids to work. A lot more black men are going to work with afros or cornrows or whatever. So, but even when we do that, we're still going to work and we're still code switching. So I guess my question is, why is the hair and appearance advancement moving a lot quicker than the code switching one? Is it the fact that we still see code switching as just trying to be professional or what?
I mean, I guess to an extent, I'm not trying to disregard the elements of anti-blackness that exist, because obviously, do you know what I mean? But I feel like with any, like, it depends on how you guys talk regularly, but say, you know, I call my girlfriend sis all the time, you know, like, hey girl, like, I feel like, and that's within all communities, I just feel like perhaps you just talk to your friends differently to how you talk to a potential hirer. I don't know, like, I feel like in a formal setting, perhaps everyone, again, it's definitely very different within the Black community, because we have to go a step further, do you know what I mean, to kind of comply to their standards and their westernized standards of what suits. But I feel like at the same time there is a difference between just kind of changing or just being formal. Like in a formal environment, I guess we just naturally act differently. Same with family, for example. Like, I don't talk to my friends the same way I talk to my family. Like, I wouldn't be like, hey girl, hey sis, like, do you know what I mean? So I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
I feel like, because I remember when I went to the interview for the driver's mate job, and when the guy was talking to me, it was like, I don't know, when I go into any interview, no matter who's in front of me, I'll speak in a certain way, because to me that's the clearest way of getting any information that they ask from me across. So it's not a thing of where I feel like I can't speak colloquially. It's a thing where I know that not everyone does speak colloquially anyway. So we just hop in there, assuming that they will, is one thing already. But then when I got to the interview, the guy himself, he wasn't speaking super proper. Nah, he himself was saying, you know, even like little things like, oh, in it, this, that, whatever. Little things like that. And it's like, that's how I explain it. After that point, I didn't feel the need to like speak extremely proper, extremely clearly. I felt like I could speak to him the way he's speaking to me. And then on top of that, for me, I feel like it's not even, to me, I don't even see code switching as that big of an issue for myself, because I feel like no matter where I go, no matter who I'm talking to, I will change the way I speak. The way I'm speaking in front of you guys today, it's probably not the way I'm going to speak to my friends at uni tomorrow. It's not the way I'm going to speak to Prince one-on-one. It's not the way I'm going to speak to anyone else the same. So me personally, it's because, I don't know, you'd like to think to yourself that you can just go anywhere and be, you know, or just be yourself, but it's not. Like, not everyone, I feel like the reason we code switch is because we know that not everyone is the same. And in code switching, you almost it's the only way that you can all get on this even ground, where it's a lot easier for you to understand each other. Obviously, there are certain things that I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I don't know if I got across what I was the point I'm trying to make here. That's how I feel about it.
If no one else has anything, I think that's been a good episode.
That was really interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
All right, so
Thanks for coming on, man.
yeah,
It was a pleasure to have you guys.
listeners, I hope you took something from it. You definitely did, as always. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.